Welcome to Earth, a Love Story. I'm Robin Lassiter, and I'm coming to you from my truck, relatively fresh out of a month-long retreat. This is going to be very, very short episode. I really want to just talk about becoming Apocalyptic Mother, the cohort that starts at the end of the month, and start to put together some ideas and thoughts about what this is and what we're going to be doing together for 9 months for those of you who are interested in joining. I had the total luxury of being off of my phone for a month, and it's weird to come back, and I'm acclimating, and I'm intentionally giving myself a lot of time to do so that's the vibe that I'm coming to you with. It's going to be a little choppy probably, as I kind of get used to being in this dimension of reality. But Apocalyptic Mother. So I became obsessed with this article from Marion Woodman and Danielle Asif, called The Psychology of Violence, or that was the paper that it was in. I'll link it in the show notes so that you can take a look at it if you'd like. It's a 25-page interview about the archetypal feminine, and there's so many incredible things in that article that have informed my work for years, and one of them is a creation that emerged in conversation between these two women, seemingly in the moment, this archetype that inserted herself into the alive space between these two women. And she's the Apocalyptic Mother, and she's not, she's not the apocalypse, like the end of the world. I think that word has been really conflated with Armageddon. The apocalypse to me is an unveiling and a revealing, and that's the original meaning of the word. And the archetypal Apocalyptic Mother is the face of the goddess who burns away the things that do not serve in order to let new life come through. And if there ever was a time on the planet, as far as I know and as we know in our understanding of history, the time is now for the Apocalyptic Mother, burning down power structures and fear and ways of being in the world that don't take care of people, that aren't aligned with deep values of connection and compassion and care and love. And she burns it all down so that we can build something new. And she is a personal energy. We experience these big archetypes both personally and collectively, and the collective changes through individual transformation. And I'm completely fascinated by the link between the feminine goddess archetype and being that she is, the goddess, and the overlap between her and anomalous experience and UFOs. And they appear together so often. This vision of the lady, of the goddess, appears alongside UFOs, alongside other anomalous experiences, and I'm incredibly fascinated by that. So I've done some deep diving, and one of the things that has become really deep and resonant for me is this awareness that I think this is from Lane Redmond's book, excellent book called When the Drummers Were Women. It's extraordinary. And she says something like, man's violence towards man is not humanity's only story. I think that so often we think that we are one thing, and that it's part of our nature. Like war is part of our nature, and inequality is part of our nature, and the brutality that humans can express is just intrinsic to who we are, and we're always going to be that way, and there's kind of nothing we can do about it. And it is part of who we are. Like, let's not let's not pretend that those aspects are not part of who we are. But apparently, if we look back in history, in this small piece of history that we can remember and that we can see, we can look back at this very short span of humanity on this planet. Most of it seems to have been inside of the archetype of the Great Mother. Women were seen giving birth and nurturing children with their bodies, just as the body of the earth nurtures her children. And that became the predominant archetype as our psyches developed, as we developed as human beings. And, when we talk about our history, we often are only talking about the last 5,000 to 8,000 years, something like that. The first Venus of Willendorf came into being like 27,000 years ago, right? This goddess culture, the great mother culture, which is different than the goddess, which I'm learning as well. These archetypes, they're absolutely overlapping, and they all have their own unique qualities. But the feminine archetype was very well established in our psyche. And then through a series of things, my new favorite saying right now is Tom Robbins saying, first there was the thing. And no, he says, in the beginning was the thing, and one thing led to another. I think that is a great sort of teaching on life. Anyway, for many reasons, matriarchy was overtaken by patriarchy. And this time where we, in our psyches, were connected to the earth, and then we began collectively to differentiate from the mother, which is necessary for development, and as we did that, we began to look to the sun god, to the solar god, to transcendence, to ascension. And that was a necessary, I think, part of our evolution. I think it all just is what it is, right? But that it wasn't that was a bad thing. At the same time, several other things happened, which is, this understanding through agriculture. Animal husbandry and agriculture was thought to be part of the reason why we moved from matriarchy to patriarchy. And it was this kind of rule by force and rule by control and power over rather than power with. And these ideas became deeply ingrained in our developing psyche as humans. And here we have patriarchy. This is what has happened. These war gods, the storm gods, the solar, orientation of the psyche started having a relationship of dominance over nature, dominion over nature, rather than working with nature. And the cyclical nature seemed to not be evolutionary, not be supportive of the linear mindset that came along with patriarchy. And so the goddess, who was emerging as this kind of the feminine as divinity, not quote unquote just Mother Earth, our bodies as the bodies of the earth, and that complete enmeshment with the feminine nature of the planet and our psyches. But now there was this differentiation and the beginnings, like we see the beginnings of goddess archetype arriving with this masculine archetype. And then again, through a series of things, for reasons, a split happened. And we split, this is very Cartesian and Newtonian. We split thought and body. We split mind and body. We split the masculine and the feminine. We split the heavens and the earth. We split objective reality and subjective reality. And anything that was not part of the world that could be measured and seen and that we had dominion over went into the underworld of our psyche, went into our shadow, our collective shadow. And that included the feminine, that included death, that included sex, any of the mysteries, the mystery of life, any of these mysteries were pushed down into our collective underworld. We became very afraid of death, very afraid of sex, very afraid of the feminine, which ultimately led to, this is a shocking statistic, and I feel very tender coming out of retreat recently, but this is a real statistic that, it ultimately led to the deaths of upwards of 1 million women who were burned at the stake as witches, while at the same time, this new Marianism, the divine, like the chaste, the virgin, the immaculate conception, the saint feminine emerged to be worshipped, but none of the darkness of the feminine, none of the death, none of the sex, the mystery, all of those things, those were reviled, and many things that were connected with the feminine were reviled. And here we have patriarchy that we are in today. And now, because there is no space in our culture for her, she has been returning, and she's returning through individuals, through dreams, through calls, for both men and women. Both men and women are called by the goddess. She comes to us in visions. She comes to us as a stirring in our bodies that is calling for the reunification of this split that happened, and transcending where we were before. So it's not a return to matriarchy. It's not a return to the Great Mother. It's an integration of the feminine that didn't happen. And as that happens, we will also need to have a renegotiation and reintegration of the masculine that appears in a different way. And in my big view of all of this, the invitation that we have is towards unification of the masculine and feminine, and then transcendence into something new. And I'm very excited by that, because that's what we have the opportunity to do on the planet right now, and that's what so many people are being called to do. And that's what becoming a apocalyptic mother is about. It's about in integrating, embracing, discovering, welcoming the feminine into our bodies. The feminine is the feeling body. And it's like learning a new language. Like we hardly know how to do it because it's been suppressed for so long. But welcoming her back, welcoming her into our own bodies. The goddess has 1,000 faces, finding the face of the goddess for us. Learning to trust the cycles again of birth and death and all of the things that we put into the underworld, reintegrating that part of our collective shadow through our individual selves. And from my vantage point, from my perspective, where I see this happening and has been happening for a few decades is through the bodies of women first. That seems to be how it's happening. And what I also see enormously is that it's also happening through the bodies of men more and more and more. Men are also getting visions of the goddess. There are many, these masculine and feminine energies, the god and goddess energies, the divine masculine, the divine feminine are in all of us. It's not about being a man or a woman. These exist within all of us. That said, this group, Becoming Apocalyptic Mother, is for women who have felt this call or are curious or want to reclaim a part of themselves that they feel like they had to put away or never had access to begin with. I think for many, many women, there's this sense that something is missing. Some part of our history has been, remains unintegrated. And it's very painful. It's very painful. These quotes are coming to me, and I, at this point, with my newly emerging brain, I can't remember exactly who said this, but something along the lines of, culture, our Western culture cannot bear the agony of the feminine. We can't. We are barely remembering how to grieve communally, how to be with each other, how to bring in the relational aspect of the feminine, and the paradox that the feminine is. The paradox is the feminine is paradox. She's both and. She is not either or. There's a great story that both Marion Woodman and Robert Bly tell about Baba Yaga. The journeyer goes into the forest, as one does in these tales, and as we go and journey into our own internal underworlds, we find ourselves lost in the forest. And the journeyer goes into the forest and finds this hut that's dancing on chicken legs and spinning around, and the dark Baba Yaga is inside the hut, and around the hut is this fence made of bones, human bones. And on every fence post there's a skull, of all of the people who have dared come here before. And there's one empty spot for the journeyer. It's like, you could be next. And the story goes that Baba Yaga asked this question: have you come of your own volition, or were you compelled? And the tale goes that if you say, I've come of my own volition, that's it. Like, your head ends up on the fence. Your bones end up as part of her fence as well. And if you say, I was compelled, you also instantly are slaughtered and end up on the fence. And it turns out that the correct answer to this question that will let you continue on the journey is something like, I was 75% came of my own volition and 65% compelled. And it's this indication that we've moved beyond the either or world and into a place of liminality and paradox. And I mean, this is so resonant to me right now, that this fighting and saying it's going to be this way or this way. It's this person or this person. It's this ideology or this ideology. It's either or is the driving force behind our warring and disrupted planet at the moment. We have to welcome in the paradox of both and it's really tough and really tricky, but that's who she is, and that's one of the many, many, many gifts that she's bringing us. So, becoming an apocalyptic mother, we are journeying into the underworld of the self. There will be deep exploration of personal and collective shadow, the integration of the contacting of, the integration of, the welcoming in of the wounded maiden, helping her return and heal. We time travel back in time. We rescue the parts of ourselves that have been down in the dark, holding that thing that keeps us small and afraid and anxious and overwhelmed. And we help her come into the light. We help her heal. And we also work with the cherishing mother archetype, which is absolutely necessary for these journeys. The love of the goddess, the unconditional love of the goddess, truly unconditional love of the goddess. And we also work with the crone, this crone energy that really needs to be welcomed back into our personal and collective mythology, so that we can take the next steps on the planet and not destroy ourselves. And so we're working with the triple goddess, the maiden, the mother, and the crone. We're working with these archetypes in ourselves, watching how changing ourselves, integrating ourselves, seems to change the world around us, in our relationships, our bodies, our own psyches, all the people and places that we inhabit and that we touch. Because the other thing, you know, she has many things, she has many faces, and another big one is that she is relational. This is all relational. It's all about relationship. It's not transactional, it's relational. So these are the deep things that we'll be exploring, and going into the underworld of self is a big deal. It's a really big deal. It's not for the faint of heart. There's a lot of support and care in this group, and it's a journey of deep transformation that is hard, and it's worth every step. It's what freed me. I am a free person. I'm a freer person. I'm working on freedom. I'm a more free person because of these teachings and because of these journeys. And then we culminate in, as we, you know, this experience of going down into the underworld and coming back up, using the myth of the descent of Inanna, by the way. That's our orienting story. She's another face of the goddess who's very, very present in this journey. We're journeying with Inanna down into the underworld, and she returns. We don't stay down there. We come back out and find that all of the space that we've made in our emotional bodies and in our physical bodies somatically for grief, for the uncried cries, for the things that we haven't been able to face, the feelings we haven't been able to express. As we've done that work and made space in our bodies and our emotional bodies, physical body and emotional body, we are then able to have space to welcome in joy and creativity and dance. And this is, again, Marion Woodman, Dancing in the Flames. That's what we learn to do. We learn to dance in these flames that bring us right to the heart of existence, where every instant is birth and death and birth and death and birth and death. And be able to bear that, to hold the tension of those opposites so that something new can emerge and something new can be created. I have no idea what I said in any of this. I hope that I conveyed some of my passion for this work, and maybe you're interested enough to want to attend the live Zoom call. Again, this cohort is just for the women. There will be, I'm absolutely developing this work for co-ed spaces, because I think it's absolutely necessary that we learn to do this together at some point. But this one's for the women. So women, if you're interested in joining the live Zoom call to talk about and hear about more of this cohort that starts, it opens on June 22nd. We're going to go for 9 months. There will be a in-person retreat at the end, which I'm really excited about it. I really feel like we need to be in body together. And that's going to happen, hopefully. I'm working on having that take place at Ghost Ranch in New Mexico, where Georgia O'Keeffe lived and worked. It's really, I've retreated there. It's very stunning and beautiful and wonderful. So sometime next year, March, April, at the end of this 9-month cohort, we'll retreat together in person to close. This is an initiation journey, and we will be different on the other side. Every time I teach this course, I'm changed as well. And that's the point of it. So if you would like to be a part of this, and if you want to be here for the live info session, earthalovestory@gmail.com. I'm still kind of out of the world. I'm not going to be checking email until I get closer to the date of the live Zoom call. But if you send me an email and just say that you want to be part of that live Zoom call, I'll make sure that you get the link. The link will go out a day or two prior to the call. So don't worry if you don't receive a link back right away. The Zoom call is happening on June 15th at 12 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, at noon Mountain Standard Time. So Sunday, June 15th at noon Mountain Standard Time. We'll gather together for an hour. I'm hoping that there will be women who have already gone through shorter versions of this cohort present that might be able to talk a little bit about their experience. And I'm happy to answer any questions. You can go to robinlassiter.com and scroll through the menu and find Apocalyptic Mother and read about what we're doing and look at the pricing, see if you want to sign up for it. I'm excited. The podcast will return to normal soon. I have a couple episodes banked that are great. Lots of things coming up, lots of fun things coming up. I think I said everything. This is I'm gonna just put this out unedited, I think. So see you on the other side. Okay, I decided that I'd like to add a little to all of this. I am very conscious of the charge and electricity that many of the words that are surrounding this work hold, like masculine, feminine, like these very words, man, woman, hold a charge for many of us. And that's, I think, how we know we're in the presence of archetypes, because they hold this electrical charge that then move through our bodies. I am incredibly aware of the nuance and complexity around these conversations in regards to masculine and feminine and what it means and how it moves through our bodies, and that it's a spectrum, and that we all contain all of these energies regardless of our expression and regardless of our biology. And so I just want to presence that. And the other thing that I want to say is that's why this is such tender work, because these archetypes are so deeply inside of us. They're woven into our very beingness, and they are so powerful. They hold so much gravity and so much electricity that when we get close to them, powerful reactions can come up, as we can see happening and continuing to happen in really complex and challenging and sometimes horrific and sometimes transcendent and sometimes mundane ways. All of these ways that these forces and archetypes are moving through us, expressed through each of us. So the other thing I want to say in relation to this is it is in relation to all of this, that when I've taught these courses before, and indeed in my own initiation into this work, the two most charged words in all of this are mother and cherishing. Those two words remain after years and years with, I have no idea, 100 women or something that I've worked with, remain the central forces of energy that seem to be the most challenging for the majority of us. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason for that. And it's really everything that I've talked about in the first part of this message. There's a reason that all the things are stirred up with the idea of mother, and then put the two words together, the cherishing mother. See what comes up, for you when those two words come together. So I wanted to presence all of that as a way to say, I am very conscious of the complexities. I'm very conscious of the tenderness around all of this, the emotion around all of it, the sense of unsafety. If as you approach something like this, like if there's a call for all of us, if there's a call that arrives, and if it's a big soul call, and if it's a real deal call, often what will accompany it is a sense of terror or dread or anxiety, or sleepiness often arises. Like, you get really sleepy. there's a part of the psyche that does not want to go here and doesn't want to look into the depths. I did some training with around somatics and attachment. So it was a somatics of attachment training, and it was wonderful. It was 9 months or something. It was a really deep dive. And I remember the image that one of the teachers gave was of standing on a boat in the ocean and getting ready to jump in to an ocean that you can't see down into. So this dark water that is teeming with beings and mystery and the other, seemingly the other, this foreign space that feels both magical, perhaps, and also quite dangerous. And the body can have a reaction standing on the edge of the boat, getting ready to jump into the water. And that is what it can feel like when we start to approach the underworld of ourselves and start to feel how much psychic energy is bound up in the compartmentalizing and separating of these parts of ourselves that have not felt safe to bring into integrity, to bring into wholeness. And so I just want to really acknowledge that as well. That's why the core theme, the core mantra of this work is the fastest way to go is slow. And the feminine archetype, the feminine energy, is much slower than the masculine. It's one of the reasons, one of the places where the feminine is really mocked is in her slowness. And so there's a reclaiming of that aspect of the feminine to go really slow, to trust the body, to trust the somatics of the body, and to not push past or override those warning signals, but to get curious about them. What part of me feels unsafe here? And then how can I bring that part into safety and wholeness so that we can continue the journey without enacting small and big violences against ourselves by pushing past the parts that are saying, no, this is unsafe, I'm scared. And so I just want to really presence that as well, that this community is a place where, as best we can, we build a tremendous amount of safety. And we also don't shy away from looking directly at the things that we don't want to look at. And I can tell you that there is an enormous freedom on the other side of looking at the things that we don't want to look at. My experience with this was this revelatory kind of astonishment when I realized how much of my psychic energy had been tied up, holding this compartmentalization inside myself. It's okay to do this. It's not okay to do this. It's okay to do this. It's not okay to feel this. It's not okay to think this. That's not an okay thought. That's not an okay feeling. And all of it, unconscious, happening below the surface. And in my body, stuck in my body, the way I hold my shoulders, the way I hold my mouth, the way we tighten our muscles against what? It's just, it becomes so deeply ingrained in the body that we can't really even see it. And I call that the body shadow, because this is all, we're entwined beings. We are not separate. We are not the body and the mind and the emotions as these separate things. They are all woven together as one thing, and that's part of the wholeness we're reclaiming as well. So I wanted to add all of that and presence all of that. It's been with me overnight as I was thinking about what I spoke in the previous message. And I also think that I said some things that will need a lot of unpacking, that I went over pretty quickly. And that's what this group is for. It's really about diving into all of this. So that's all. Just wanted to add those things in that we're calling to be spoken. And yes, okay, that's it. Can't wait to see you on the other side, and hopefully at the info session on Sunday, June 15th and beyond. All right, my friends, till next. If you want to book a one-on-one session with me or learn more about my work, please visit robinlassiter.com.